Good evening and welcome to the August edition of the Board of Zoning Appeals for the Town of Smyrna. At this time, I'll call the meeting to order. We're going to start off tonight with prayer and pledge. If you will, please join me by standing with prayer, and then we'll do the pledge. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the Town of Smyrna, and we ask for your continual blessings for our leadership, our staff, our first responders, and our citizens. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Phil and Scott. The third item on our agenda tonight we have is citizens' comments. I see none at this time.
That is correct.
All right. Number 4, we have approval of the minutes from the July meeting. Those should be in your packet and appear to be in order. Any corrections or adjustments? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion for approval
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Number 5 is new business. It looks like a busy night. We have 5 items on the agenda tonight. We will start with a temporary use permit for Patrick McCoy at 1219 Hazelwood Drive. Mitch?
Yeah, this is a temporary use permit for a food truck at 1219 Hazelwood Drive, the Quick Sack gas station. The food served for this food truck would range from chicken, loaded fries, quesadillas, and among other food options. The property is zoned C2, approximately 1.03 acres in size, and the building on the property is currently being used as a gas station and convenience store. The property has access to Hazelwood Drive and Old Nashville Highway. There has been previous food truck requests for this location as well. Section 7.060B and C of the ordinance detail the requirements for a special exception review. In addition, Section 7.061.13 details specific requirements for this use, and they are detailed below. Special conditions for temporary outdoor sales of food or retail merchandise. Approval in writing of the owner of the subject property where the proposed use is to be located shall be included with the application. The applicant has provided this letter from the owner providing approval. The site shall be improved to provide adequate parking as determined by the BZA and shall provide for an on-site turnaround area. Adequate parking already exists at this location, and staff does not believe this should be an issue. Traffic control measures may be required by the BZA. Staff does not believe traffic control measures will be required for this location. Tents will be permitted provided they are erected in conformance with all applicable codes. Any such tents must provide emergency exit remote from the point of entrance onto the tent. The applicant has not indicated they plan on utilizing a tent for these sales, but if tents are utilized, they must adhere to the above conditions. Any site must be located so that all parts of the structure and inventory on the site are no more than 500 feet from an operable fire hydrant. Proposed truck is located within 500 feet from an operable fire hydrant. The applicant has requested the following dates within the 2020 year: August 22nd, 23rd, 29th, 30th, September 5th, 6th, 12th, 13th, 19th, 20th, 26th, and 27th, October 3rd, 4th, 10th, 11th, 17th, 18th, 24th, and 25th. This is below the 28-day maximum for the 12-month period. Adequate provisions shall be made for restroom facilities on site. This condition has been addressed. The owner did supply that, or the applicant did supply the letter from the owner that states the owner is welcoming any customers into their restroom facilities. No permit shall be granted where the site to be utilized is in violation of any building, fire, electrical, or other codes as adopted by a town. No permit violations are present at this property. Adequate provisions shall be made for solid waste management. The applicant is aware of this requirement and will provide their own trash cans to be removed at the end of each day. BZA may require additional standards be met in order to assure compatibility of the proposed location with adjoining properties. Staff would not recommend any additional standards. And number K is not applicable in this instance. In conclusion, staff finds that the applicant is meeting all the applicable provisions as set forth in the temporary outdoor sales of food or retail merchandise requirements. The applicant is proposing to use 20 days at the Quick Sack location, which is at 1219 Hazelwood Drive. A couple pictures from the site. This is just at the back of the property, looking towards the intersection of Hazelwood Drive and Old Nashville. Another picture from the opposite side of the property, and this is an overhead shot. And that's all I got for you.
All right, thank you, Mitch. I do have one question, Mitch.
Yes.
This application is for only 20 of the allowed 28 days.
Correct.
If this applicant wanted to utilize those remaining 8 days, they would have to refile with the
Correct.
Board of Zoning Appeals to get those additional 8
Correct.
days. Correct. Okay. Just want to make sure that that's known. Any comments or questions from the board before we open a public hearing? All right, great. At this time, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone that would like to speak for or against this request. If you would, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for a motion.
I move to approve the temporary use request.
Motion to approve
I'll second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the motion is approved. Mr. McCoy, if you're watching or if you're in the room, your motion has been approved. You're ready to go. Make sure you work with codes, meet all the requirements that you need. Next item on the agenda, 5B, is a special exception for Jennifer Van Nelson, 119 Hutchinson Drive.
Yeah, this is a special exception to allow an in-home business at 119 Hutchinson Drive. Property is zoned R1, low-density, single-family residential, approximately 0.42 acres in size. Driveway at this location has ample size to accommodate up to 8 vehicles in addition to a detached 2-car garage. The applicant would like to provide art lessons for adults and children ages 8 and up. Classes would be scheduled Monday through Friday and operate during regular business hours with the option of extending to after school hours. Occasional evening and Saturday morning classes could be offered for adults and older students. Evening classes would conclude by 9 p.m. and students leaving promptly after that. Parents would have the option to stay with their children or drop off for their lessons. Small group classes would be offered as well as one-on-one sessions. Classes would be held inside as to limit the amount of outdoor noise created. Section 7.060B of the zoning ordinance detail requirements for authorizing special exceptions, and they are detailed below. A conditional use permit shall be provided. The board finds that it is A, so designed, located, and proposed to be operated so that the public health, safety, and welfare will be protected. Staff finds the proposed business of art classes should not negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Will not adversely affect other property in the area. Staff finds the proposed use should not adversely affect other properties in the surrounding area, as the classes, as stated by the applicant, will be offered inside and the driveway is large enough to accommodate 8 vehicles. Is within the provisions of special exceptions as set forth in the ordinance. In-home occupations are considered special exceptions within the zoning ordinance. Conforms to all applicable provisions of the ordinance for the district in which it is to be located, as well as provisions cited in section 7.060 and 7.061, and is necessary for public convenience. Staff finds the site may be able to conform to all provisions of the municipal zoning ordinance as listed in criteria review section 7.060C, criteria for review. Ingress and egress to the property and proposed structures thereon with particular reference to automotive and pedestrian safety and convenience, traffic flow and control, and access to the site in case of fire or catastrophe. Access to the site will utilize the existing driveways off of Hutchinson Drive. Off-street parking and loading areas were required with particular attention to items 1 above and the economic noise, vibrations, glare, or odor effects of the special exception on or by adjoining properties and properties generally in or near the district. Staff finds the lot provides sufficient space for parking with enough room in the driveway to allow for students and parents for the off-street parking. Refuse and service areas. Refuse collection will proceed in the same manner as it is currently. Utilities. This location has all the necessary utilities available on site. screening. Staff believes will not be applicable in this instance. Signs, if any, and proposed exterior lighting with reference to glare, traffic safety, economic effect, and compatibility and harmony with properties in the district. Applicant has notified staff they will want to utilize a sign for the business and will have to adhere to the above effects. Signs are allowed in the residential district but may not exceed 6 square feet in size. Required yard and open space. Staff finds there is adequate space on this lot to support the business as everything will be conducted inside. General compatibility with adjacent properties. Staff finds that the use may be compatible with adjacent properties as in home occupations are allowed within this residential district. Number 9 is not applicable in this case. And staff finds the property provides sufficient space for applicant to conduct their business of art lessons. Activities would be performed inside in an effort to reduce any effects the business would have on neighbors, and the applicant is able to meet the aforementioned conditions listed above. This is a picture of the subject property from the driveway, looking at the house and that detached garage that was mentioned earlier. And just a picture further back looking at the backyard as well as that detached garage. And then once again just an overhead shot showing what the property looks like from above. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Any comments or questions from the board before we open a public hearing? All right. Well, this time we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. If you would, please come forward. Please state your, yes ma'am, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Jennifer Van Nelson, 119 Hutchinson Drive.
All right.
I'm here just in case you guys have any questions, and also to let you know that we walked around and talked to all the neighbors to let them know that we were what we were doing, and they were all for it and excited for us to be there.
Okay, they're great. Any questions for Jennifer? Kevin, did we hear from any neighbors?
I had a
Mitch?
couple. I had a couple people call. They're more so just wondering what's going on more than anything else.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jennifer, I noticed in your request you were asking for a sign variance. One thing to point out is that you don't need a sign variance as long as you stay at that 24 inches by 36 inches, which is 2 by 3.
Okay.
6 square feet is allowed.
Okay.
So as long as it's not in the right of way too close to the road, then you're good. So you don't need a sign variance, only the special exception, just so you understand that.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, anything else? No? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion. I don't see any concerns. I think there's adequate parking. You know, it's probably a good service to be providing for youth these days is art lessons, so I don't see any concerns unless you guys have any. All right. A motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the special exception.
All right. We have a motion from Jay, a second,
I'll second.
and Scott with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The special exception is approved. Next item on our agenda, we have 3 setback variances. The first one we'll start with is Roy and Rachel Horsley at 7713 Ellen Drive.
Yeah, this is a front setback variance request of 14 feet along Florence Road to allow for a covered patio. And once again, the property is located at 7713 Ellen Drive within the Victoria Park subdivision. It has 3 front setbacks, one on Florence, one on Dave Way, and one on Ellen Drive. The property is zone R3, medium density residential, and has a minimum front setback requirement of 35 feet. A home located on a corner lot creates significantly smaller building footprint in the rear yard for any desired structures due to these 3 front setbacks. The proposed covered patio would be 14 feet by 42 feet attached to the principal structure, sitting approximately 21 feet from Florence Road right-of-way. There is a 15-foot drainage easement in the rear yard along Florence Road. Applicant has an existing privacy fence installed in the rear yard as well, which is located outside of that easement. Section 7.080D of the ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are detailed below. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict application of the ordinance were carried out must be stated. Staff finds that 7713 Ellen Drive is a corner lot in which 3 front setbacks of 35 feet must be met for any structures without a variance being granted. Conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds that being this is a corner lot, it creates a smaller building footprint in the rear yard than other similarly sized lots within the same district that are not in corner lots or have 3 front setbacks. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by the ordinance. The attached structures are allowed by right within this R3 zoning district but are to adhere to any applicable setbacks. Financial returns should not be considered as a basis for granting the variance. The owner and applicant have not identified the financial returns as a reason for this variance request. Alleged difficulty or hardship have not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. Creation and size of the lot were not completed by the applicant. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds this type of variance has been requested by other applicants who had also had 3 front setbacks in order to utilize their rear yards. Variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the requested variance may be the minimum as the rear yard already has a poured patio that they would want to cover and it's already in place. The granting the variance will not be detrimental to the public welfare or interest of other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other property or improvements in the area. Proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion in public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds that granting this variance should not create any of the above effects, and once again, number 10 is not applicable. Staff finds that this property is a corner lot and that would have 3 front setbacks which need to be met for any structure which is attached to the principal structure. The 3 front setbacks create a smaller building area in that backyard. Similar variance requests have been presented to the board in the past in order for them to utilize their rear yard. One of these instances was in Liberty Hill subdivision. We had a corner lot come in, they wanted to build a pool in the backyard. A very similar situation that was approved in the past. The hardship noted is the presence of the 3 front setbacks in this instance. This is the home we're discussing. This right here is that easement that we were talking about, and the privacy fence is located outside of that easement. Right here would be where that covered structure would be located off of the main house. And then this is just another corner lot picture of the house. And then you can see here from this overhead shot, the patio would be in the back, or covering that concrete patio they already have poured. That's it.
Excellent. So my understanding is that this would be, there's a 15-foot drainage, but it looks like it's about almost 30 feet from the road, is that correct? So there's 6 feet still inside the privacy fence, right?
Yes.
The privacy fence stays in place, okay. All right, any other comments or questions? Anyone?
No, that was mine, was to make sure it's nowhere near the easement, but it's not because the fence is outside of that easement, so we're just talking about what's inside.
All right. This time I will close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. Please come forward, state your name and your address for the record, please.
I'm Rachel Horsley, and I live at 7713. And we would like to add this patio for shade. We've got 2 dogs, we've got 3 kids. The sun rises behind our house and it falls in front of us. And then we also have Florence behind us and there's no privacy. So we're just kind of wanting to add a cover so we can enjoy the outside of our home as well.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed in, I think one of the pictures you had, it looked like the sun was directly
Yes,
on the
it
back of the
beats
house.
right in, yeah.
All right, and the patio's already there, you're just basically covering the patio,
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Horsley? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against this request? Not seeing anyone, we will close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion.
I think it's got 2 corners and 3 front setbacks. That's hardship as you get it. You
With
know
an
what I mean?
easement.
So,
Yeah, with an easement,
With
that's
the
right.
15-foot easement.
yeah, I mean, we have no easement issues. We don't see any safety issues. There's already a patio there. It's inside the fence. I mean, at this point, I don't personally see a reason not to approve it.
Yeah, so the one thing that kind of stood out to me was item number 1 in our staff report that says that the property at 7713 is a corner lot with 3 foot setbacks of 35 feet. Without a variance, pretty much no structures could be constructed. The way their house is designed, they're 35 feet all the way around pretty much. So to make reasonable use with those setbacks and the variance, I think there's no other way but to grant the variance. So if we're all in agreement, we'll get a motion.
I will move to approve the setback variance request.
All right, motion to approve from, I was like, who just did that?
It's the bulletproof
Yeah,
glass
sorry.
they've got to speak.
Yeah, I couldn't see through it.
Yeah.
All right, need a second?
A second.
And a second from Scott. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. That one's approved. Appreciate the motion, Phil. The next item on our agenda is another setback variance for Mary and, is it Mina Salib? 622 Ken Pilkerton Drive.
This is a rear setback variance request of 9 feet to construct a cover over an existing concrete patio. The applicant has already started work on the structure until it was noticed by a codes department. Codes was driving by through this area, did notice this covered structure, and we started to do some digging in on it and realized there was no permits pulled for this project, and that's how this came to be. Property requesting the variance is located at 622 Ken Pilkerton Drive. Property is zoned R4 medium density residential and has a minimum rear setback requirement of 20 feet. The cover patio would be 10 foot by 17 feet and 4 inches attached to the principal structure. If granted, this variance would place a permanent structure attached to the home 11 feet from the rear property line. Section 7.080D of the ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas. The board shall not grant a variance unless it makes findings based upon the evidence presented as it follows. Particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished from mere inconvenience. Staff finds the property is relatively uniform in size and shape to other properties within the R4 district. The conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds this lot is similar to other properties zone R4 with not distinct differences that would make a variance necessary. The variance will not authorize activities in a zone district other than those permitted by this ordinance. Attached structures are allowed by right within the R4 district but are to adhere to any applicable setbacks for the principal structure. Financial returns shall not only be considered as a basis for granting a variance. The property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for requesting this variance. Alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. Creation and size of the lot were not completed by the applicant. However, construction on the structure started without the applicant applying for a building permit. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds that this variance would provide the applicant with special privileges denied to other properties within the same district due to the lack of physical hardship with this property. The variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that the requested setback variance may be the minimum to make reasonable use of the existing patio in the applicant's rear yard as the concrete patio is already in place. Granting the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or interest to other property or improvements in the area. Proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion in the public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds granting this variance should not create any of the above effects. Number 10 is not applicable in this case. And staff finds that this property is relatively uniform in shape and size to other properties within the R4 district in town. Staff finds there is a lack of physical hardship for this request pertaining to the property layout. In addition, applicant did start construction on this structure prior to pulling the appropriate permits, at which this request could have been addressed appropriately. Here's a couple pictures out at the site. This is just showing where that attached structure is on the existing home. This is from the neighbor's side looking at it closer to so you can see what it looks like from a side angle. And then this is a overhead shot. You can kind of see where that existing patio is located currently. And that is all I have.
All right, thank you, Mitch. Any comments or discussion from the board?
So these are townhomes, right?
They are duplexes.
Duplex homes?
Jeff, could I ask you a question? Item number 7 in the staff report says that the variance is the minimum that make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure, and the staff found that it is the minimum that would make it reasonable. Is that alone enough to justify an approval?
I think you need to tie that to, what am I trying to say? I lost my words here. A hardship, I'm trying to say.
That's the first time I've ever heard you.
I can't,
without
I can't speak. Anyway, you need to tie that to a hardship. I think that in and of itself could lead you to that, but you still have to say what is laying with the land, what is, sort of topography, is there something else?
Where I was
easements?
going with this is the fact that with the 20-foot setback requirement, the house is pretty much on the setback. So there's no way to build anything in that backyard without an exception, which could be the hardship.
Sure.
And then if this is the only thing that makes a reasonable use, and the staff agrees with that, there's potential there.
Yes, and I think, like I said, this leads you to that. It's just you further clarifying that, as you just did, could lead you to that conclusion.
Okay, all right. And honestly, where I'm going with is the one that we just approved was almost the same issue. The setbacks require, to make reasonable use of the property, was 35 feet right up to the house. This is really not that much different. It's 20 feet right up to the house. It's just there's no easement in the back.
Correct.
That's pretty much the only separation, I guess, and that's kind of where I'm going. My thought process was. Of course, the 3 corners makes it a little difficult too, but, okay. Any other comments or questions? At this time, I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against this request. If you will, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Mina Black, and my address is 2364 Edencrest Drive, Eniac, Tennessee. And I'm talking on behalf of Mr. Mina Salib. The only thing he wanted to mention is he asked the homeowner association, and they sent him an email saying that they approved his request. The only thing they need is to match the material and the colors of the house.
Okay, so you're saying the HOA approved the request, that they gave him some requirements that it had to meet color and style, basically.
Yes, sir.
And that they approved the request. Did we get any calls regarding this?
We got one just saying they were wanting to know what it was about, and maybe even a couple of them actually, just due to the nature of the area, and I mean, these people drive through it. But we did receive a couple phone calls about it. Nothing really major concerns.
No negative concerns?
Yeah, more of it was just, what's going on here.
Okay, and I guess since this was started without a permit, is there a fine or penalty for that if?
And we would just go in and enforce it. Codes would go out there and enforce it as if they don't comply with what the regulations are,
Yes,
which
sir.
typically this would not be allowed. they would have, to if you all decide to deny
They would have to
this.
come to us anyway for
Yeah.
approval before they could get the building permit.
Yes, I mean, they would be forced to take it down, yeah.
Gotcha.
I think there may be a doubling of the permit fee, I think would be the ultimate, or the most of a fine, I guess you would say.
Okay.
If you all were to approve it.
And is that automatic, or is that something we would have to include?
I think that's automatic in
Okay.
the ordinance. I don't think that's something you have
All
to.
right. I guess since the homeowner's not here, I would curious as to why he didn't pull a permit. But if he's not here, there's really not much point in that unless you have any conversation around the lack of permit.
The homeowner is here.
Okay.
Yeah, he's sitting right there, but he, if you want to ask him anything, I can ask him because he does not speak that well English.
Yeah, just curious about the permit. Did he, was there a reason why he didn't pull a permit? Did he just not know, what's going on with the permit? Does he understand that he has to have a permit and that honestly not having a permit doesn't really help his case much?
هو احنا ما قالولناش ان احنا يعني شفت بناء على القانون ده ما قالولناش ان انتوا محتاجين تجيبوا البرميت، هم قالوا تصرفوا بناء على كده، ما عرفناش اللي بعد ما بدأنا شغل وبناء عليه احنا وقفنا الشغل عملنا خلاص.
Okay, when they asked the homeowner association, they told them only the material and the color. They didn't mention anything about the permit, and they don't know about it. That's why they didn't try to request it.
Okay, so yeah, so for future reference, a homeowner association doesn't have responsibility for the property owner. As a property owner, he's responsible to contact codes and find out, or the city and find out what might be required. Homeowner association is one piece of it, but the city is the other piece. So just in future reference, any work that he does out there, it's best to contact the city and find out what may or may not be required. He may be required permits, variance exceptions, fees, fines, whatever. He needs to just make sure he's covering his bases by contacting the city directly. Okay. All right.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the Board of Zoning Appeal, close the public hearing, reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm trying to go home early. We'll reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for conversation and a motion.
I think my only comment would be that the neighborhood or the homeowners association area is several units, so by approving this, we're in theory opening the door for all units to have the same structure added.
We would be, they would have to do the same thing. They would
Yep.
have to come in front of us, pay the application and get approval. And they would also have to obviously meet their HOA requirements. So yeah, you're right.
And building codes.
Yeah, you are correct. What I'm concerned about, and one of the things that I've charged you all with from many times is consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that we're being consistent in what we're doing every time. And that's my only concern is there are lots of cases where we have approved similar type requests due to not having anywhere to build it, setbacks or the distance between their property and any structure is just too tight. It's essentially the reason we approve corner lots all the time. We have multiple setbacks, which makes it a little bit more tricky, but it's still the same reasoning, is there's just not any room outside of a variance. And that kind of feels the same way. What's behind this property, Mitch? It looks like trees, but I don't know,
Yeah,
is
it looks
there?
like-
If there's a fence, there's a tall fence back there, and as well as
Another house.
other residents.
Okay.
That
Yeah, I
residence
see,
there.
okay. Yeah, so, I'm gonna be honest, I could go either way. I think that with the HOA's approval, which I believe she has in an email, she's held her phone up a couple of times, so we could probably get a copy of that if we wanted to see it. With the HOA's approval, the fact that the 20-foot setback is directly on the back wall of the property, basically, back wall of the home, there is, I think, a small enough hardship that we could approve this if you guys are so inclined. There's also the issue that it does potentially create a case where other homeowners with similar issues may come forward. So it may create a consistency issue for us in the future. But I'm going to let you guys speak. obviously, no permit and building construction before coming to us is also a factor, but
Yeah.
I don't know that that should factor into your decision whether to approve it. I think there should be a fine, and that's why I was asking, because if there wasn't, I would maybe make sure that there is. But if there's already a doubling of the permit fee, that probably is fine enough.
I agree.
Well, I mean, your conversation earlier was looking at item 7 was to discuss that staff comments. You're saying it's the minimum required. Now, let me ask a question on that, though. Where it says that you find that it's the minimum to make reasonable use, is that based on the request?
It's based on the request, and they have that existing covered.
You
they
know,
have
my
existing
concern was,
concrete
is
out
it based on minimal use of the property, or are we talking about that's the minimum use based on the request? Because on the request, that is the minimum use, it's the size of the structure, which is not related to at all with that being minimum reasonable use of the property. And that's my concern is on this one, is there's no actual hardship on that. You know, because we don't have like a double front setback where they're having to meet that. You know, this, where we have in the past a lot of times on the corner lot issue with having the double setback, and this previous had a triple we're talking about. Ours has been specifically if the structure fit where where it said it could, if it met all the other provisions, and the fact that it was a true hardship, being that they couldn't go anywhere else with that. This is a little different because there's no hardship on that 20-foot setback, and a lot of houses have that straight line back setback where it's backing up to other property. My other concern is the fact that it is noted by staff it does provide special privileges that have been denied to others. You know, that is not the same that we just had on the previous. If you noticed, the language by staff is we've consistently approved when there's been a multiple front setback issue, as long as what was being proposed to be built was inside what we felt was appropriate. This, they actually said, I believe, they believe it would create a special privilege
Number
where we
6
have
mentions
not.
that.
So that concerns me because these guys look at previous cases to see what's happening, and it said staff finds the variance would provide the applicant with special privileges that were denied to other properties within the same district due to a lack of hardship. You know, in that case, I go towards consistency as we have not done it.
Okay. I see where you're going.
And that's why I was
The
trying to
logic is
ask
there.
Mitch, the language on saying it's the minimum, well, if you're saying, well, sure, the request is the minimum based on the request. We want to build a covered patio, it goes here. Well, that's a minimum of the request, but not your opinion of the best use of the property. And that's what I was getting at.
Correct.
Am I?
That's the way I wrote it, yes.
All right, so really, they're saying that minimum is really just based on the request, but not on this.
Okay.
So as much as I want to approve it as a homeowner person that loves a backyard and loves covered patios, there's not a hardship or reason to allow it besides just saying we're okay with it. And Jay is exactly right. We open the door to special privilege and having the neighbors want to come. And I'm just wondering if that's the best thing to do. I'm only bringing this up because, as Steve mentioned, the previous approvals have been consistently on corner lots with multiple front setbacks. This is, to me, is different just because, and those aren't a special privilege. We've been consistent on that in doing it. So this is a hard one. It's hard to say no, but we're looking at what it says, and it says there's a 20-foot setback. There's no real hardship here. And Jeff mentioned if we wanted to tie it to anything, it needs to be to a hardship, which we're not finding.
Okay.
I mean, that's
Those
my
are-
thought. Sorry,
I
it's
think-
long-winded, but I don't like to say no to anybody.
Those are all good points, and I agree with you on number 6. I didn't ignore it, but I just didn't think about that. It does provide potentially a special privilege. So, all that being said, any comments from the left side of the room?
I think you're
I
pretty
represent the
much
right
to both
side of
sides
the
of it.
room, yes.
This is a left and right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
Left or right twigs here. All right, any motions out of all that?
I will make a motion to deny based on lack of hardship.
We have a motion to deny the request based on lack of hardship. Any seconds?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to denial? All right, sorry, the motion has been denied. Next item on the agenda we have is Mark Kavanaugh. It's another setback variance. It's 306 Catherine Grace Drive.
This is a nearly identical request to one that you all saw last month. Same subdivision, other side of the street. The applicant has requested a front setback variance of 30 feet to construct a new detached workshop. The variance requested for the property located at 306 Catherine Grace Drive within the Liberty Hill subdivision has two front setbacks on Catherine Grace Drive and Matthew Miller Drive. The property is zoned R2 low density residential and has minimum front setback requirements of 35 feet. Home located on a corner lot creates significantly smaller building footprint in the rear yard for any detached accessory structures due to the two front setbacks. The proposed garage is 24 by 33, which is 792 square feet. This lot is approximately 18,708 square feet, which does allow, based on the ordinance requirement, or ordinance restrictions of 800 square feet for detached structures, so they would be within this requirement. Applicant plans on using the garage as additional storage space for recreational vehicles and construct using a brick material similar to the existing house. Placing the proposed structure in the requested location would position it approximately 18 foot off the edge of pavement from Matthew Miller Drive. There is a 20-foot drainage easement along the rear of the property as well. Section 7.080D of the ordinance detail requirements for variances not involving special flood hazard areas, and they are as follows. The particular physical surroundings, shape, topographic conditions of the specific property involved that would result in a particular hardship upon the owner is distinguished from mere inconvenience if the strict application of the ordinance were carried out. Staff finds that 306 Catherine Grace Drive is a corner lot in which two front setbacks of 35 foot must be met for any structures. In addition, there is a 20-foot drainage easement along the rear of the property, and any structure must be built outside of that easement. The conditions upon which a petition for a variance is based would not be applicable generally to other property within the same district. Staff finds that being this is a corner lot, it does create a smaller building footprint in the rear yard to other similarly sized lots within this district that are not corner lots. This is in addition to a 20-foot easement that also affects placement of any structures. The variance will not authorize activities in a zoned district other than those permitted by the ordinance. Detached accessory structures are allowed by right in the R2 zoning district, but are to adhere to any applicable setbacks. Financial returns shall not be considered as a basis for granting a variance. Property owner has not identified financial returns as a reason for requesting this variance. The alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property after the effective date of this ordinance. Creation and size of the lot were not completed by the applicant. Granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. Staff finds the variance requested is identical to a request heard in July and was approved due to similar hardship. Other similar requests have been approved by the BZA previously. Variance is the minimum that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. Staff finds that in order to utilize the lot while placing structures outside of the easement, the requested location is the most sensible. Applicant plans on having a double garage door on the structure facing the driveway as well. For this purpose, it would make sense to place the structure in the desired location due to proximity to the existing driveway and garage. Granting the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injures other property or improvements in the area. Staff finds the variance should not be detrimental to public welfare or injures other property or improvements in the area. Proposed variance will not impair adequate supply of light and air to adjacent property, substantially increase congestion in public streets, increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, or substantially diminish or impair property values. Staff finds that granting this variance should not create any of the above effects. Number 10 is not applicable again. Staff finds that this property is a corner lot, thus having two front setbacks which need to be met for any accessory structures. The two front setbacks create a smaller building area in which could be considered the backyard. There is also a 20-foot drainage easement located in the rear of the property, which further restricts potential locations for any detached structures. If the drainage easement was not located on the property, the proposed structure would easily fit within this appropriate setbacks. The additional fact that roll-up garage door would be a part of the structure makes it sense for it to be located in the requested area due to the proximity to the existing garage and driveway for any automotive uses desired by the applicant or future owners of this property. This is the applicant's house. taken from the corner lot area. And then this is the approximate location where that structure would be located. I don't know if you can tell based on this picture, but there is a bit of topography sloping on this property. When I went out there today to take a look at that. So this is the area where the applicant is requesting. It is the flattest part of the property as well. Part of that due to that drainage easement. And then this is just visual purposes, showing where that proposed garage would be located on the property, and then showing for visual that this is that drainage easement on the property as well. That's what I got for you.
All right, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Looks very similar to last month.
Yeah.
Are we sure about the 30-foot number? Just because I didn't really see that dimension on any of the drawings. I just want to make sure we're giving them the amount that they need, if we're going to do that.
Yes.
It looks like it's 35 feet from the house, but that's not actually to the street. And the drawing that we've got is 18 feet from the street, so is 30 feet the right number?
So 18 feet from the road, and because the right-of-way line is not on the road, that kind of shifts the numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
This is scaled using GIS, and approximately what the measurements came out to. Upon creating this, did take a measurement from the edge of the road back 18 foot, and that's where this garage is located, just for visual purposes. So
Okay.
it is about as close as we can get.
Okay, all right.
Numbers.
As long as I just want to make sure we're good, because the applicant mentioned 30 feet, but then in your conclusion, you didn't, so I just wanted to make sure that what we were discussing. All right, at this time, I'll close the Board of Zoning Appeals and open a public hearing for anyone who would like to speak for or against the request. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. Mark Kavanaugh, 306 Catherine Grace Drive. Just wanted to state and reinforce again that, the easement with the drainage ditch is the main reason why it won't fit, and I'm asking for the variance. It will be to store a boat and camper that will save me from having to put it in a storage unit off-site. It will also keep it from being, stored outside unsightly to neighbors, and keep, the conditions of the neighborhood covenant. The garage will match the house, be brick, be 33 by 24, and stay under that 800 square foot regulation.
Okay. You're still going to be, the back of the building will be outside of the 20-foot drainage
Yes, sir.
easement. So the only variance you're asking for is on the side, essentially, right
Yes,
there.
sir.
Right, okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Kavanaugh? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak for or against? We had quick movement and then a change of heart. So we'll close the public hearing and reopen the Board of Zoning Appeals for discussion and a motion.
I mean, I'll cut to the chase on this one. There's a hardship of a double front setback, and there's a 20-foot drainage easement in the rear of the property that we said it would actually fit in a different place if it wasn't for that easement, so therefore, this is the place, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and move to approve the front setback variance request of 30 feet due to a hardship of 2 front setbacks and a 20-foot drainage easement in the rear of the property.
All right, we have a motion to approve the 30-foot setback due to the drainage easement and 2 front setbacks. Do we have a second?
I'll make a second. Phil never goes that fast.
Okay, that was pretty quick.
Yeah,
Phil.
so
Yeah.
I'm definitely
All
seconding
right,
that.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have none opposed. All right, that is the last item on our agenda for review. Number 6 is staff comments or any other business.
I have nothing.
All right, if that's, anyone else have anything? All right, then we will stand adjourned. Thank you.